Okay, let's get started. So, how many of you remember the first version of Androidify that has been published in 2011 and it's been missing from the Play Store from 2020? So, show of hands, how many of you remember that? I saw one hand. Oh, all young developers, perfect! Okay, so before you would have your app, and was also a website if I remember correctly, running on your phone. You could slim down your Android, make it taller, smaller, add in some ads, some facial hair, some hairs, some clothes. And so basically you made your own bug droid. Okay? But now we release the new version, which is even better because it's powered by Google AI. So it's not the only thing that makes this up. We built it using Jetpack Compose, Fairbase AI Logic, and of course, Gemini. We introduced that at Google I/O 2025, and it's a new open source app. Okay, but we talk about the fact that it uses AI to turn you into a bot. How does that work? Any clue? No, good. I'll tell you. Perfect. So let's break down how it actually works in the minimal detail. So there are three main steps. Okay, the first one is image validation. We need to make sure that the image is good to go. The second one is image captioning. We need to describe to the model what's inside the image. And third, there is the image generation. So we use different models to handle each of these steps. So let's dive a bit deeper, shall we? So first things first. Before we do any of the fun stuff, we need to check that the photo is good to go. What does it mean? Well, first thing, we need to check if the photo actually represents a person and if the face of this person is in focus, because otherwise it's complicated. Then, is it a safe image? Does it contain any inappropriate content? So this step is critical to continue in our journey. Once the photo gets the green light, so we validated the image, we need to generate a description. That means that we have a model that will look at the image, describe it down to the minimum detail, going into things like if you wear glasses, what color are these glasses? What are you wearing? What is the pattern that you're wearing? What is the kind of hair, facial hair? Anything that makes you unique, it's been described in the neat and precise format that can be used later on. Then the real magic happens. We take the detailed description that we just generated and we use it as a prompt for the image generation, which is a custom version of Imagen 3. Now, to get the bot to look just right, with the iconic shape that we all remember, and the style, well, it took some fine tuning. So we needed to show it a few more pictures of the droid that we wanted to generate. And of course, we added more accessories and more little details to make it even more Androidy. But there is another thing that I wanted to talk to you about, which is the vibe background. Once you have your bot, you can give it a vibe by adding a background scene. So you have a list of vibes. You can see here a few of them, like gamer or music lover. And we use Gemini's image editing powers to combine the bot with the background. And the model is smart enough to place your bot into the scene naturally. Like it always belonged there. And finally, we use the MLKit subject segmentation to remove all the background precisely from the bot to generate a backgroundless PNG that can be used as a sticker in any app that support that feature. That's pretty neat, right? Okay, we talked about all the AI that powers the app. But to make it truly awesome, you don't you cannot only rely on cool features. There are some little gems, little details that you can put in your app to make the experience really enjoyable, to make the app feel more polished and possibly more fun to use. These are the kind of details that grab user attention and make them really love the app over time. So let's dive into some details that we put into Androidify to make it really enjoyable. So first things first, Androidify embraced fully Material Tree Expressive theming, which we just saw in the talk previous to that. It's fresher, more vibrant version that really give you more creative freedom. And it has some features that we really used inside Androidify to add these little gems of delight. Let's see the first one. This is the transition from the prompt, which it can be a photo or a text, and the camera preview. So when you tap on the camera preview button, you see that there is an animation that reveals the camera preview. And we truly aimed to have this continuous feeling that will make the user not feel like that's a jarring cut, because those screens are very different. So the goal was to animate from that cookie shape to the camera preview. How did we do that? Well, it's a three-step process. First, we use the shared bound modifier. The important part here is that both the initial, the cookie 9 side shape, and the final shape, which is the camera preview, which is a rectangle, have the same keys, so that Compose can understand that those two are connected and part of the same process. To make sure that everything works seamlessly, we've wrapped all our composable into a shared transition layout. So we have the shared transition layout and the shared bound modifier with the same key. That's a key concept. I know I repeated key, but that's important. Next, there is something that is almost as important, because the shared element transition on its own would have made the camera preview shrink together with the animation. But that's not what we wanted. We wanted the reveal. We wanted the preview to have its final form and then revealing it through an animation. So we used other two modifiers, which are the skip to look ahead size and skip to look ahead position, which basically tell the composable, this is your final shape, well, your final size actually, so don't resize, and this is your final position, because the cookie is not really at the center, so we would have seen that moving. We call this transition a reveal pattern. And then there is the last step, which is where Material Tree Expressive comes into play. So, what we do here is using Material Tree Expressive, especially the shapes coming from Material Expressive that have morphing capabilities baked in, to actually do the animation. So we first generate, well, we declare our shapes, which are, again, the initial one, that is the cookie, and the final one, which is the rectangle. Both comes from material. That means that both have morphing capabilities. Then we animate from 0 to 1 so that we can control really easily the animation. And then we pass them both to our shared bounds modifier, and the compose library underneath it can operate its magic. And all of these together makes sure that this animation feels natural. But you don't have to remember all this code because all of this is open source. Okay? So this one is not the only piece of delight that you put into the app. Because, of course, being built with Jetpack Compose, that means that it comes naturally with support for predictive back. That means that in the same way in which the animation works, going from the button to the camera, as soon as you start swiping back, the animation will reverse, going back to our prompt window. But we added more because, again, we wanted all the app to feel enjoyable. For instance, the carousel indicator, which you can find only on the phone version. We see that in a moment. This isn't just a static dot that changes color, but it fluidly animates between states based on what you're seeing, if you're seeing the intro or the explanation video. And this actually offers a subtle but quite satisfying clue. Also, there is the Let's Go button and its animation. This is a circular reveal that we introduced a while ago, but it connects quite nicely the introduction to the next window rather than having a jarring cut. Even when you export your bot, there are some nice animation and touches. Like, for instance, when you press on the different aspect ratio, you can see the background shrink or enlarge, and everything is animated accordingly so that you are sure of what's happening. All of these animations are meaningful. And then, as we talked about earlier, the background vibe. We talked about the AI that powers it, but the model takes some time to run. So we need to tell the users that something is happening. That's why we added the visual cue that you can see here that spans across the whole composable and gives a hint to the user that some AI magic is happening under the hood. So, why did we spend so much time into these small details? As we mentioned earlier, that's because they truly matter. These details are precisely what elevates an app from functioning to being enjoyable. They help you craft an experience that feels intuitive, engaging, and high quality, showcasing a level of care that users appreciate. It's our way to ensure that from the moment you launch Androidify, the experience is just as fun as the bot you're about to create. But we covered the AI that powers Androidify, we cover all the nice animations, but there is another incredibly important piece to this puzzle. That is making sure that the app looks and feels great on any screen. We didn't just build Androidify for your phone. We built it to be adaptive. And that's actually a really big deal. Okay? So, think about it. The days of designing for a single phone-sized screen are long gone. The Android ecosystem is massive, and Android can run across a huge variety of devices, from phones to TVs, passing through tablets, foldables, XR headset, and even Chromebooks can run your Android apps. And people are actually using those devices to run all their favorite apps. These users expect the app not to just work, but look amazing across all of these devices. So we knew we had to embrace this multi device reality from the moment in which we started building Androidify. And when we say diverse, we really mean it. The app support everything from standard phones to tablets and foldables. The layouts have to adapt seamlessly, whether you're holding a phone, unfolding a device, or using a tablet. This means meeting your users where they are on the hardware that they have and they love to use. Now, to give you some perspective on the scale we're talking about, we are talking about 500 million devices that are classified as large screens. So these are actually a lot of devices, and those includes tablets, foldables, and Chromebooks. So that's actually a huge number of people that want a great experience on bigger canvas. But that's not the only thing that matters. Because on the horizon, there are even more possibilities. For instance, there is a developer option to enable connected displays on your devices. You connect your device to an external display, and suddenly a fully fledged desktop environment pops, and your app is actually resizing. Will change its aspect ratio, its size, and possibly its density. This means that your app needs to be ready to scale and work properly across all the form factor, all from the single code base. Building adaptively is no longer just an advantage, it's fundamental to future proofing your application. If you want to know more about all these changes that came from Android 16, make sure to check the blog post at this URL, where we talk about all the changes that we introduced for large screen specifically on Android 16. And that's a wrap. We cover a lot today, from the AI magic that powers Androidify behind the scenes to all those little gems of delight, like shape morphing and all the animations. And we also talked briefly about why building adaptive apps for all screen sizes is so important in today's multi-device world. We hope you are as excited as we are about how these tools can come together to create really engaging AI-first experiences. Building Androidify was really fun, and it shows what's possible on Android today. But don't take our word for it. You can try it out today, either on the website, or you can download it on your phone, or if you didn't try it yet, there is a booth outside where you can try it out, and it's actually quite fun. Of course, the code is on GitHub, so you can pick everything we did, from the animations to the Firebase AI logic to how to make the app adaptive. And there is also a blog post that goes into even more detail. So I think that now we have time for question. And usually one of the questions that I get when I talk about adaptive is, yes, but how? And I have an answer for that. Do you want to hear that answer? Great! So, the first building block will be window size classes because it's so fun, but how do I understand where to position my elements? How do I understand if I want 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 columns? Well, I need to know more or less what is the size of my window. This is where window size classes, a very tiny API, comes into place. It will tell us what is the amount of space we have for our window. Based on that, we can make all the layout decisions. Once you get the window size classes right, everything else is super easy, especially in Jetpack Compose. Because at that point, you really have an idea of how much space you have, and from there, it's all easier. Thanks again for being here.